Hello and welcome to Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz and this is
Sean.
Yeah, and today we actually have a Back to the Roots podcast. We are basically talking about all the freelance stuff that is actually just occurring in our world, what affects us right now creatively and creatively. Did I say creatively twice? Well, anyhow, today we're just talking our coffee talk, and you can be part of this, and we will just talk about art, freelance creativity, and everything that basically rocks our world. And yeah, Sean, what is rocking your world today?
What is rocking my world today? Well, I'm in an interesting place where I've cleared the plate of old clients. It's not something that happens very often, but it's kind of like clearing house every year or two. And so I'm, have 50% of my time now available. So now I'm in that weird place that a lot of freelancers find themselves where they're panicking and they're also enjoying it and kicking back. So it's a little yin and yang right now in my world.
Ooh, I like it. Right now, so that's basically where I kind of want to talk about, like with the first topic. So it's kind of structured, but not really. It's a little bit loose today. I want to talk about how to get the ball rolling again. And I think this is like a good time because like everybody right now is probably going through this recession, depression, whatever you want to call this state right now, where everybody's pulling back and it's like, I got to save the money. And you're basically like, I'm going to get that back, but how do you get that back, and how to get started with that. And I kind of want to go back to our first clients, how we got them and stuff like that, and things that actually helped you to get business.
Well, yeah, I can kick that off. My first freelance clients, if we go way, 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 way back to the very unlegitimate beginning of Sean Craig Creative, way back in the dark ages of 2013, 14, really?
Is that the emo era? I think so.
The emo era. Yeah, we were all listening to Seosin and no. I was actually pretty deep in the electronic scene at the time.
Oh.
But yeah, so that goes back to college days really for me, and those first projects, are very humble, right? The very first ones, if you want to go way back to the very beginning.
100%. Let's do this.
Yeah, so my first freelance projects were just friend recommendations, which I think are a lot of what everyone's first projects are, right? Or just friends, family, giving you a thing or two. So I think the first thing I can remember ever making was I made this logo for a massage therapy company down in Colorado Springs while I was in college up in Denver. And it was just a friend. It was just a friend's wife started a massage company, and I made this really cool. I still love the logo. And then, but what's really funny is I wanted to, I've always been like trying to bite off more than I can chew, and so obviously I could just type out, I think the name of the company was Healthy Living Massage, and I think I could. Instead of just typing that out and finding a good font, I was like, you know what? My first logo, let's do some custom lettering. That should be easy, right?
Oh, yeah. So easy.
It was such a funny practice of like a month and a half of me tweaking this font to no end. And anyone out there that's ever like done custom design typography, they'll tell you that like once you stare at, Healthy Living Massage for like 20 hours straight, it's just never going to look right. And it just looks terrible. And it almost gets worse and worse the more you mess with it. But it ended up being a good project, I think, even back in those humble days, though, it was really funny. That first project of just like spending way too much time and probably not getting paid for it. I don't even remember what she paid me.
On that note, though, I want to go back to that because, how did you got the friend recommending you? Did you actively talk to, your friends, hey, I kind of want to do this? What were the active things you could do right now? Hey, I'm Sean, and I kind of want to do logos. You know somebody who does logos, actively going out there? Or what did you do?
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think that's kind of one of the benefits for anyone that's in college, that's in art school, is that a lot of your friends, a lot of your family, they're like, oh, you went to college. What are you going to college for? And you're like, oh, well, I'm going for graphic design. I'm trying to be a logo designer. I'm trying to be someone that would brand a company. And I think in this case, I think I had just caught up with this friend, and he had asked, what I was doing. And I told him I was doing graphic design. And I was going to school for it, and I think he just saw that, his girlfriend at the time, she had this small massage company. So what's the worst that can happen, right? To let this new graphic designer kind of do this logo. And who knows how much I charged at the time? I really wish I knew. It was probably dirt cheap, though. It was probably so disgustingly cheap. It was probably hilarious. Like, probably like $150 for a logo that I probably spent like 50 hours messing with.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's though all that's really needed. If you just need a logo in the beginning and you're just starting out, and it's like you said, small business, and they don't see the value, that's the appropriate price, maybe. But obviously, if somebody with a bigger budget and bigger dreams and they want to grow exponentially and whatever, they need a better logo, obviously. But for the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, like, having like a small price for something gives you a lot of freedom, right? So if they're paying $150, it's like, they're not going to be breathing down my neck. Where if it was my first design project and I was like, it's going to be $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 for a logo, it's like the expectations would be like way up here. And then that could have been ugly, but it actually ended up being a good. She was happy. Everything we did, she was really happy with, but that could have been because it was cheap. I think that's something I've ran into now later in my career, is now that I have these higher rates and I charge a decent amount, there's not that cushion now. So if I spent 50 hours on a logo that I should have only spent 10 hours on, nowadays it may actually create a lot of tension.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? What was your first project? I'm really interested.
So for me, it's kind of weird because I slipped into this freelance world through a weird path, because I moved from Germany to America and I was documenting my journey with a phone camera, and then traded out my camera for the YouTube game basically, and just teaching myself how to film. Was a server, and there was a fitness trainer, also a server, and we both were kind of in that hustle mentality. He's like, I need to get there. I'm ready for that competition. I gotta work out. I gotta get more clients, and obviously it was I think, nearly 5 years ago or something like that. And I basically, was like, hey, I'm filming stuff, and I usually film myself, and I didn't do it for the money, but I was like, I could film you working out, and maybe you get some clients if you have a video of that. And that was too dirt cheap, because it was $75, and I drove to the gym and basically filmed him working out, edited that in 4 hours, but it was all fun. But it's not nice watching a guy sweating over the PC for several hours. So I'm like, do you really want to do this? But it was also communication with a friend, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was a fun project though, in a way, right? You could kind of
And first dabbling in the freelance world, and hey, I actually can get paid for that.
Yeah. Well, and there is a special joy when it's your friends, right? When you're really trying to help them and you're excited, and so that's interesting. So it was a little project for a guy at a gym.
Yeah.
Did it go well? Was he pretty happy?
Yeah, 100%. He loved it, and since then, as long as he lived here in Florida, he basically hooked me up with work. Obviously, he was it's kind of funny. So he was not that successful with his clients. So it's not like that he is oh, I got a big budget and I'm growing an insane amount. And it kind of, I think, also comes back about the mindset of your client, how they grow and how adaptive they are and how efficient they run everything, because if they have a bigger budget, I could do more, but that is is that an excuse, or should I have done more to give him, more clients? So it's kind of right. Whose fault is it? And I'm we're both kind of the same level. And so it was kind of weird.
Yeah, well, they're always
on an entrepreneurial spirit, you know what I mean? Even though it's a different thing.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, that weird back and forth. I've had that a few times. I definitely have as well. To go on kind of after that in my career, I think a lot of the stuff I did at the end of college, during college and the end of college, is I worked for the clubs up in Denver.
Yeah.
There's some, EDM clubs that were pretty big and popping back in the day, and just production companies as well. Oh yeah. I probably lost half my hearing from those days, I'm sure. So I think those days are really interesting, because it was like really cool work, right? Like I was doing very sexy type of work. Like, hey, we're gonna have this rave. We need you to do like an illustrated devil woman in like a bikini like illustration, and we need this cool font. And there's gonna be fire, and it's gonna be all this cool stuff happening, and it's so it was really cool aesthetic wise. But what was really interesting about that time is I didn't get paid for a lot of it. I think that was so when I walked into art school freshman year back in 2010. God, I'm dating myself. Back in 2010, I walked in with an internship in art school. I thought I was big boss man. None of the other design students, none of them had any internships or anything, and I thought I was a boss. I had an internship at this place that was essentially acting as the design firm for a lot of these clubs, and it was really cool. It was a really cool experience. However, the funny thing about the club world, a lot of people will tell you, is getting paid and money and things like that. Definitely a very cloak and dagger type of world. So
I feel that.
So that was very interesting, where I think this happens a lot to people early on in their career, like that they go after the things that are very, yet again, sexy and just cutting edge maybe, or maybe fits their life. And then a lot of the times early on, they kind of get taken advantage of. And I feel like that's kind of what happened. It was a great experience. So I wasn't angry by the end of it, I don't think, but I definitely... It was interesting because I remember having to ask teachers and other experienced designers, like, is this normal? Do you not get paid for stuff? Like, I remember literally
the
asking...
struggle. Hey, you don't get paid either?
I remember asking one of my mentors at the time, I remember, like, walking in and asking her, like, hey, so I haven't been paid in, like, 3 months from this one job, and it's cool work. Is that cool? And she just, I'll always remember her just shaking her
looking
head
over.
and
Wait
just
a
looking
minute.
at the ground and being like, no, that's not cool. And, you really, even if it's cool work, you should really have value. But so that was kind of my first jobs. And so, what's interesting is when you start out, I think you can make the argument like get paid, but I also would say make the argument of like, if you don't get paid, but you're so early on, you haven't done anything.
Sometimes there's like negative work, and in video gaming, it's called like a negative micro, for example. Like if you want to do fancy stuff in a video game, like pulling pro moves at times when it's not really usable, or you basically like, I should do this, and that actually hinders your performance. And you basically, if you're a beginner and you do fancy stuff, but you cannot do the fancy stuff, it just screws the whole thing over. So it's like you're doing negative work. What is like kind of like, if you would have done less, you would have done better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. And I mean, to give you some kind of context too, those days were crazy for me. I mean, I remember I had 3 full-time jobs. Not full-time jobs, but I had 1 full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, including running the street team for these clubs. I full-time student at the time. So I remember my average amount of time I could sleep every night was about 4 hours, and I was so tired every day. I would literally just lay on the bed. Sometimes I'd still have my clothes on. I wouldn't get my clothes off, and I would just like fall asleep. Like not even joking. Like, I mean, like the club nights, like Thursday, like I would always have to be there during club hours. That's when we'd have the marketing meetings, because I guess that's when club people have marketing meetings, is when everyone's drunk late at night. But and it was really funny because I wasn't 21 at the time, so I'm here in these VIP bars with X's on my hands, and sitting there having club soda while we're having these marketing meetings, and
soda with lime,
Yeah, I kind of thought I thought it was cool though. It's really funny. Like I thought it was.
I like that
really
feeling.
Cool.
Yeah, when you got a gig and you walk in, you're just like, I'm getting paid for this. I'm not like you guys who pay to be here.
Right. Well, yeah, because I mean, like, just to go even back in the past from there, I learned about graphic design in the weirdest ways possible. I think one of the things that I remember distinctively when I was in high school a long time ago was I remember picking up a book at Barnes & Noble, which that alone is going to date me. But picking up a book at Barnes & Noble that, it was something, I still have it to this day. Actually, it's right here.
Me too. 1 second. We make the book reveal we make the book reveal of Barnes and Noble. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, check the stories out. And so for a designer or graphic designer, what is your book?
So I bought
The first book ever.
So I bought this book probably back in 2007, but
Okay.
Freelance Design Practice. And so
I like that.
I remember
It's mirrored, but
yeah, and it's and it's actually a really good book. It's funny. It's like I should really revisit it. It talks about business plans. It talks about all these other things. But I remember being a kid and picking that up and being like, this is so cool. There's all these cool things I can make. But even in this book, it was all about the professional and corporate world. So when I was told, hey, you don't have to be in the corporate world. How about you work for some clubs, bro? How about we get some cool club flyers? We'll have all the ladies and music.
The fun laid back work and
so I was
nothing.
just like, what? This is so cool. This is even cooler than the book that got me like in love with this. And so I think I was a little blinded by that, but I mean, I wouldn't give back that time of my life for anything, though. I mean, it was so fun. I mean, going to all these free shows. I mean, I saw Deadmau5 like 3 times. I met Paul Oakenfold twice. I mean, so there was like some cool stuff that happened. But yeah, it was so funny though. The amount I got paid was probably less than $1,000. Ooh, okay. So your first book was How to Shoot Video.
That doesn't suck. Yeah,
Dang.
it wasn't.
You should have read that.
Got him.
Zing.
No, but I mean, like Barnes and Nobles and books are like actually like there were some good things that really like help you out sometimes. Was there like a lesson in that book that stood out to you? Like if you would like summary the book right now and you come up with the number one thing you learned from it.
God, it's been so long. I really should just reread the book. It's probably a little old now. It's probably just a little antiquated. But you know what was really funny is when I read it, it was like over my head, right? I was in high school. I had no I thought graphic design just meant that you were making art that was more graphical. I think if you were to ask me, like, what's graphic design, I would have been like, it's just art that's graphics, which isn't the case. And so I think I think I remember reading it and not getting half of it, like not understanding like most of it, but being like, "Ooh, look at these pretty pictures," and "Oh, look, these guys look like they make a lot of money." And even the design of the book itself, this is what I like about graphic design books is they almost always, they have like a cool, design to them. They don't look. It looks like a nice book. It has a nice feel, nice premium pages, and I think even me seeing that was just like, "Whoa, this is so cool! Like this feels good. Whoa."
Yeah.
Like, maybe I can make some cool stuff. And it is, so it was...
Inspiring, too.
Yeah, it was, like, inspiring in a weird way. Like, where picking one book up off the shelf is kind of what nudged me enough to be like, you know what? Maybe you should give this design thing a shot,
Yeah. And sometimes it is like, usually people say don't buy stuff to get stuff done, or, to solve a problem. But sometimes it's like, oh, you bought something nice. It motivates you again. It sparks the passion up again, So sometimes it's fine to spend a little bit of money to get like a little bit more fire under your butt and being like, oh, I feel the passion again.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and let's go. Let's take a little time machine back to high school where
Vintage.
I was talking about,
Vintage. Here we go.
Put on our monocles and top hats here. But so I think it was an interesting time in high school. I think a lot of people run into this, at least in the design world. I'm sure it's probably similar with videographers too. But I remember being in school in like art class, being pretty talented in art class. I think I was in like all the advanced art classes. I felt like I did it really well. But there was a point where I'd hurt myself in college. I'd hurt my back, and I had to kind of come up with all of these, I was essentially told by a doctor, you're not going to be able to play football again. You're not going to be able to be boxing anymore. You're not going to rock climb anymore. Like, you're done. There's no physical future for you professionally. And I remember, like, it was really funny because, like, I think a lot of people all the way up till their senior year in high school think they're still going to be the pro football player or that they're going to be some cool adventurer. And then it sets in that, like, hey, bud, you're probably not. And then, so for me, I remember like kind of spinning. I think it was like junior year. I was just kind of like, oh my God, what am I going to actually do? Like, am I going to try to paint my whole life? I'm not even the best painter in the high school. Am I going to
Yeah.
try to do music? My band hasn't really made it yet. And I remember like this, just like my head spinning and,
I feel that. I had that same thing.
And this book was like one of those things where it was like, no, Sean, here's how you can be creative and have a career doing it. And look at these guys that at least look like they're making a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot of designers, where a lot of designers are reformed artists, really, where they're just artists that were like, I need to make money doing this, but the art world is a little too scary and gray area, where this seems more like a solid creative endeavor. But yeah, is that how it was for you?
Yeah, so I think like in general, like even for any human being right now, this is like a very relatable topic. Like trying to figure out what will I do with my rest of my life, and is this the path that I shall take, and be like, oh, will I be like a number one pop star in singing? Will I be like, whatever career it is, you kind of self-reflect and you're like, oh, I'm not like the most sexy guy and I'm not top model or whatever. So it's unlikely I will be in the top 1% of the celebrities, super professionals. But there's like, oh no, there's people making a living out there with like being professional. What is like, I think really important to know. Like you don't have to be like the top of the line designer, web designer, whatever, or videographer. There's still like a lot of people making a living that you never heard about and you will never hear about, but they're doing a good living, And there's hope.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. And just to highlight, this was a different time, right? I mean, even 2008, 2009, was light years different than today in terms of, we didn't have a million creative YouTube channels. There wasn't a ton of, it was out there. People knew about graphic design. I mean, it wasn't like a secret by any means, but it was way less accessible back in those days. I mean, even back then you had to, where now you pay for Creative Cloud, like Adobe Creative Cloud monthly, and it's a little steep, but it's at least like semi-approachable for someone starting out. $60 a month is still like, oof, but it's it's approachable, where I think back then you bought the software, which I still think is maybe the better approach than paying monthly. But I don't know. I don't quite remember the price, but I remember it was like, hundreds of dollars to buy the software. So it was like, there was all these kind of gates back then. It felt like, now of course, a lot of us were, being creative in how we would get the software. I'm sure back in those days, probably it rides with a Courant, but, But so I think, it's just very interesting how one book was the window for me, I guess. It was just this one ray of light that was like, hey, this is potentially something, and that's something I think recently I had to kind of go back and look at, was like, dude, you did it. Like, remember when you read that book about being a freelance designer? Well, look, you're a freelance designer. You did what that book kind of made you start that journey. So it is interesting, though, that the weird, humble beginnings, right? Of like, where did this come from?
I mean, the bars are always like there, and you always will judge you to the newest standard, and you will always say, am I though a freelancer? Am I really a business? Am I really like getting enough clients to call myself like a professional, But in the end, like by the tax code is like, if you make money and your goal is to make money with that thing, you consider it a business. So it could be that you're just like having a hobby, selling like $60 worth a year of something, but that is a business kind of sort of thing. Obviously, that should be not your standard, because like nobody can live from that. And I mean, like the goal should be living wage and everything. But tax code, real life,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think we know some people, I think right now, that are scared to make that jump too. And maybe they have a job, right? Like in this case, maybe they have like a consistent design job and our videographer job somewhere else, and they're scared to take that plunge, right? They're like, well, I need to have like multiple months of money saved up, or I don't know where to even start, and I
got the story there.
Yeah, please go for it.
Yeah, so one of my friends, basically, we met at an event that we both shot, and we did not know that he's there and filming that thing, and I'm there filming that thing. I'm hired by the owner, he's hired by the owner, and there's like a fire show going on, the whole shebang, and I'm just basically pulling up there with my cameras and gimbal and whatever, and I'm there. he's there. We're looking at each other. We're like both know our ways, and we're like, what is that? Why you here? Why I'm here? You know, his name is Jonathan, and he's a videographer, and he was in a freelance world like me. And basically, I was like, hey, let's link up, let's be friends, and let's learn why we got hired, and you know, and try to make sense out of this client because that didn't make any sense. Second event, hired again, both at the same time, and I'm like, what is going on? You know. Since then, we're like kind of buddies, and he was in the freelance world right now. He was like struggling like I was, and I had the thing where I'm like, I want to make the customer bleed more, and he was like, not make them bleed enough with like getting paid, you know? So I had double the rate, and he adapted the rate because he was, in my opinion, better than me. But I'm like, he's a good guy, whatever, you know? But I charge more. So I was proud of that. But on the note, though, he basically did the jump from freelance to corporate and now makes way more money. And I'm like, is that maybe the way right now to just jump into corporate, make more money? And he's like very happy right now.
Yeah, well, you know, I would be lying if I said I even now I'm not considering that. I mean, you know, like you had said before, you know, with us going, you know, possible recession. I mean, I personally think we're already in a recession. We're just not calling it that.
Yeah.
You know, for people out there, you know, we're recording this July 1st, 2022. So I think, you know,
before the nukes.
Before little did they know. If you
talking
hear
about freelance,
if you hear whistles
I
in
want
the
a can of
background, then
beans.
the podcast may end really soon if you start to hear whistles in the background. But
it's getting
you know,
bright there, Sean.
Oh yeah. It's getting bigger. But oh jeez. But yeah, you know, I think it's so. Of course, I've thought the same things, right? Yeah, having a consistent paycheck. I mean, that sounds like such a godsend. I mean, even the fact that, fun fact, I've never had paid time off my entire adult life. I mean, so when people tell me that they take a vacation and get paid, it just boggles my mind. And you know, so I think. So I could see that, you know, I could see myself being happy. I think one of the reasons I haven't been happy in a full-time job is I just haven't found the right one. I haven't found the right boss. I haven't found the right place. So if your friend here, it sounds like he found a good fit, you know, and
he basically had a reawakening after like some drama and reinvented himself. And I'm like, here's to you, Jonathan. Congrats. This one goes out to you.
To Jonathan.
Yeah. But I mean, like, on that note, though, I mean, there's no right or wrong. And sometimes, like, you know, if you have, like, a good habit and, like, let's say clocking in at 8 and leaving at 4, it's a good habit, you know? You can build with that. You can modify your life. You can build your life around it. You can still be creative afterwards and beforehand. So drop a comment down below if you're, like, full-time, part-time creative. And, yeah, I want to hear about your story.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, you know, it's interesting though that reinventing is a big deal. I think, you know, for me, it's always like figuring out when am I going too far with freelance? Like when have I exhausted all resources? But what's so funny for me, even just recently, right? Like I just said at the beginning of this podcast, that my plate just got cleared recently, right? I had a client that was taking about 50% of my time, completely gone now. I had another client that was taking 20% of my time, completely gone now. And so it's interesting. Like now is a good time for me in my career when I hit these points where it's like, okay, well, where are we? Where's the money? Where's the time? Where's the love for it? You know, and yet again, I'd be lying if I didn't say some of those things were even now a little exhausted for me, where I'm, you know, Stefan Sagmeister, he's a you know, I think I brought him up before in one of the past episodes. He actually, one of the things that he's really tried to push for the whole design world as a whole is to take a year sabbatical. He's done that multiple times in his career. I think he has a rule like every 5 years he takes a year off. Yeah. And I would love to do that. I wish I could say I've done that, but I think those hard resets though are really important, you know. Yeah.
Oh, I want to riff off that because, like, that's one of my, like, I guess, like, key personality traits. Like, I'm, like, really on the reinventing yourself, you know. I'm basically moving from Germany, starting a new life in America. Then, like, doing one job and then, okay, I want a vacation. In America, there is no vacation. Let's take time off and just quit, and don't even know what job is afterwards, and that was before the whole like freelancing attempts and stuff like that, because like you were with me when I'm like, hey, I'm quitting my job. I think I can make enough money jumping freelance when you back down here, and I'm like, first thing I had was like a gig at the Renaissance Fair, what was like kind of a disaster, but I still made it kind of work, what was like an experience by itself. But I always go through like times where I'm like, I guess like I need to travel and I will not get a vacation and I don't know if I will get clients afterwards, and it's a hard reset. And I'm looking for that again. I'm going to Germany and probably will lose my part-time job in a restaurant. And I need to restart the client base again. And I lost momentum because I did other stuff right now with the Etsy thing. Completely lost track of like, I should reach out to people. I should be involved in a community. I should be, like be part of the community so that they think about me and reach out to more people. And then I do a lot of like creative podcasts and creative like stuff like YouTube, and there's like so many things that you have to put time in, but like you have to put time into the community kind of.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I think one of the things that COVID taught me was that I want to always be in a safe spot. I feel like I found out that I always gravitate towards safety. And that that can sometimes lead to isolation for a freelancer, right? That, you lock yourself in your office and you're just like, as long as I keep pumping out work, I'll be successful. And over time you find out, oh wait, pumping out work doesn't necessarily mean getting more clients or money or appreciation or anything. So yeah, you're getting that momentum, right? Getting out there, talking to people, being out there.
And it takes a month or two.
Yeah, and it does. And I mean, and I think it's really smart of you when it's already chaos, it's already, things are changing. That's the perfect time to do it, because your norm is already upset. You're already in this place of like do or die anxiety. It's like, now's the time to do it, right? Because it's hard to do it when you're already comfortable, right? Like, so your friend Jonathan, he's probably comfortable now. So if you were to try to tell him, hey, get out of that comfort. Come over here with us and play in the deep end of the pool where it's scary with sharks.
Whatever.
Yeah, who needs health insurance? Who needs paid time off? Who needs these things? And, so for him, it'd be probably terrifying. Like, unless you had something super solid to hand him, he'd be like, no, why would I? But if he got fired today, just got handed his slip, you're done.
What can happen to anybody?
It can happen at any time, exactly. And so, like I said, we're probably in a recession now. So even anyone that's watching this may have been fired or be fired within the next month. So so it's rolling with the chaos. I think when I started my freelance practice, for good, so I had a freelance kind of going in the background for probably 6-7 years. Graduated college, still did freelance. Even after college, still just a little freelance on the side. And when I say little, I mean like a logo here, a flyer there, a brochure here. Nothing big. I mean, it was probably less than $1,000 a month ever in freelance land for a while. And then I got tired of a job back in 2019. I felt like or actually 2018. Where I felt like I had tripled the billings of a company. I had helped build them up to a really good place. I had helped hire and train a design staff, and I had no raises.
That was the mistake. Replaced.
Top my replacements, but but nothing was really working. And I think a lot of people get to this place with their bosses where their boss doesn't think they're going to leave, just straight up. Their boss is just like, I don't think you're going to leave, so therefore I'm not going to bend to your demands. And I got to that place, and I remember being like, Sean, you can either stay here for years and years, and it's comfort, and he's going to keep paying you your checks on time, but you've lost the battle, and there's no real winning the battle here. Like, this arena, you're not going to win, so the only way you're going to win is to step out of this arena. And so when I went down to Florida,
you learn new techniques, It's like you're in there combined, and like, let's say you get fired after 10 years. Now you're like a freelancer with no 10 years of experience,
Yeah, and so anyway, so in this case, I kind of made the call of like, you know what, let's let's just go. So at the time, I had a friend, that was like, move down to Florida, invest on this house with me. And I was like, yet again, I was like, you know what? This is kind of a chaotic thing of like, it's not every day your friend is inviting you to go in on a house with him in a different state and kind of giving you that bridge to move somewhere new. And I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity that maybe I should just take. And so I remember moving down to Florida with barely, I mean, I had enough money to get by for a couple months, but I probably moved down there with $4,000, $5,000 in the bank account, and that was about it. That was me starting my freelance full time. And so about the time you and I met was probably a couple of weeks after I moved down there. I didn't have anything
that was
really.
fresh?
Yeah, I didn't have anything really lined up. I maybe had like little projects in Colorado. Yet again, I was probably making less than $1,000 a month in projects. But even when I moved to Florida, I think it was even less, maybe $500 or less.
On that note, though, that was the time when we met. So that basically also means like it was the peak of the chaos. The pressure was real. Like you were like, I need to go out. I need to meet people. So what did you do? You went to a meetup thing. You got involved in community. We got introduced to each other. And now we're here. So it seems like if the stress is real, you actually find ways, and when you get comfortable, you just like let it slip. What is like sad.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we only probably really met because of the chaos, right? Because
that's what I mean.
Yeah, because I definitely, I think I even remember being like, you know what, you didn't move to Florida to not go anywhere. You didn't move down here and go freelance so you could sit in your house. So I remember being like, whatever, just go. And that meetup was a big deal. It was like literally, I had gone to one networking thing before that was only my second networking thing. And I met you. I met a group of guys that I ended up doing web design and UX design for, and they really brought me to a level I am today on web design. And all that happened from one night. And I remember even trying to talk myself out of going. Like, I was like, I don't know. And finally, I was like, okay, whatever, just go. And
I feel like we're getting comfortable here. We got to get out there, got to do some stuff. So everybody who's listening, I want you to take the step. Like, let's say there's a meetup, go there, no matter what excuse you come up with. And yes, next episode, I want to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, anyone watching, like, if you're one of those people that are lurking in the back of a social media group, or you're the one that sees a poster on the wall of a new event and you're like, I don't know, try to push yourself to go. One thing that I tell myself nowadays that really helps me a lot is if you don't like it, leave, right? If you go to one of these things and it's super uncomfortable and you hate it, you can always go. You can always leave, but to never ever show up, that's the worst thing you could do in the world. At least show up, and if you hate it, leave early.
I mean, on that side, though, did ever something really negative happen when you go somewhere or do actually something? It's usually the opposite. You stay at home, and now the outcome is way worse. You did not interact. You didn't do anything. You procrastinated. You came up with excuses to not do the thing, and now you're sitting at home, And it's usually always better to just take the pain and do the thing because it's never that hurtful as staying home.
Right. I think people still think of things as, the first day of school as a kid or something, that they're going to, that someone's going to be super mean to them and is going to like call them out. But, at the very worst, nobody talks to you. That's the very worst thing that could happen at one of these things is you kind of stand there awkwardly where no one's talking to you. And that's not that big of a deal, really. I mean, I know like I personally suffer a little bit from social anxiety for sure. So I know other people out there also suffer from that. So if you do, I totally understand the kind of irrational thinking around being out in public and the irrational thinking of other people seeing you and not being perfect and you not being good enough. And that kind of imposter syndrome. So those things all do make sense. But the only way you break that is you got to get out. And So to kind of like go full circle, I would say like, the big thing is to embrace the chaos when chaos comes. Try to meet it and try to go out and
get out
and expand out.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good thing to for this time frame right now, or time, whatever you want to call it. It's like, it gets uncomfortable. The chaos is happening. Just like break yourself loose and just get swifty with it and just do the things you got to do.
Swifty. Yeah. No, it's true. So, it's I tell people about that one meetup because it was just so detrimental to my time in Florida. And my first year as a freelance was more successful than my last year as a full-time employee, which I didn't expect. I was hoping to my goal was to make as much as I did as a full-time employee, but I ended up making more. I ended up making like 20-30% more than I did as a full-time employee, and I had all the freedom. I could go wherever the heck I wanted. And so that's why I'm addicted to it now, I think. Even now recently, I've had some personal like physical things in my life and mental things in my life, and with freelance, what I do love about it is you can always create room for relaxation. And the thing I hate the most about the full-time world is you always have to report to someone, right? So you're having a bad day and you have to like call the boss and like either tell them I have a bad day or come up with an excuse that I'm sick, or with those people with kids, oh, the kid's sick, So I think, which is just dumb, right? You should be able to just be like, I'm having a terrible day. I'm not going to be a good creative. I need to be able to take the day off. And so as a freelancer, I feel like I can do that a lot more if I need the time. Yeah. And so a lot of people, they look at freelance as a big scary thing, but there's comfort too. There's a lot of comfort too, and it does balance when you're doing it right. There is still, just like there is in full-time employee.
We're trying to find that infinite balance of like, oh, this is chill.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Good.
Finding a good
chill.
Good rhythm. Yeah, because you have to have chill. You have to have that chill, or you're just going to burn out, man. And I've had a few times in my career where I've gotten close to burnout. I will tell you what, and even recently, I would say was one of those times. Just for various reasons, we'll probably get into at some point. But yet again, even right now, I'm in this kind of place where it's like, okay, we'll embrace the chaos, right? 60% of my clients are gone now, or 60% of my time, I should say, is open now. Do I run out there, just try to fill up that time as fast as possible? Do I try to find the right fit for that time? Ooh. Do I explore if I want to be a designer still? Do I explore if I want to move into full-time? But now's the time, right? It's chaos. Embrace the chaos.
Yeah, so here's a challenge for the chaos. So you're a designer. You thought about the t-shirt brand. What I want to make you do is like, go into Redbubble, whip up some designs, and sell designs on Redbubble. Just as an exercise, not for like real business. So you basically can go to that website, upload designs, and you can decide if that will be on a t-shirt, a mug, or whatever. And then you can basically sell your designs, and you can make a passive income for people just buying designs that they like. And if you have a trending design, you get some money. If not, whatever. It's just basically like a creative exercise for the clothing brand. You know what I mean? So go out there and do this.
Oh, is this my homework you're giving me?
Yeah, I was like thinking about doing it myself, I have, for example, that Create Before Consume mug here, and it's a drop shipping kind of website on Printful. And I basically signed up, didn't make the listing on Etsy or whatever website, and I have the mugs, they're great, and I can relist them, but I never really put the listing up onto the website so that people can buy them. But I should do that, and I should add to it, or just basically buy a bunch of stock inventory of the mugs so I can sell them, when I have people on my podcast, for example.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like a quick exercise, and you should like put a timer on that, get a little bit, out of the comfort of not doing things and do one thing that is uncomfortable. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting for me is I've been talking about how the plate's cleared for me, but what's been interesting is the universe like hears me. I don't know if this happens to you, but the second the plate clears, it's like a little beacon goes out in the universe. So like, So when I was driving to my last client meeting with the 50% of my time client, when I knew it was going to be the last meeting, I knew this is the one where we're gonna hand off all the stuff. It's over after this. I get a call from an old client who he just wants me to create a little graphic for his group of guys that they go up and they go gold panning in the river. So I'm creating a little,
nice.
and they call their group Spoonful. So it's going to be a little spoon with gold nuggets in it. So I'm creating that graphic now, and I just got done doing my friend's wedding invites and then cool little RSVP website, with all these pine trees and stuff, and it's pretty cool. So it's like, so it's interesting that stuff kind of comes in naturally, right? And me as a creative, I think, so you're right, doing things like these little type of exercises of like, just do something stretch your brain, and then put it out there. That's not a bad idea. And honestly,
Yeah.
I think that's what this podcast is in a way, right? This is just
Yeah,
us.
but now you got a little bit of momentum, and I want to push that momentum to the next level. Just like, hey, let's put another creative little thing extra on top. Because you gotta stretch the capabilities of like how much can I put out there? How much do you want to put out there? I could say like one podcast is enough, and I should focus. And here I am sitting here on the infinite creative podcast. And creative.
You said it right. Oh my god.
And a couple others. I'm like, why not build a network? But that's just like thinking. Not that I want to do that, but
you heard it here first. The Fitze Media Group started today.
Sean and Fitz. I need a website and a blog post.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's but yeah, I think stuff like that's a good too. I think that's something I would like to get better at. Social media too. I think I've seen some designers and artists where they just make like a little fun post, right? Like, so one thing I did, I think I'm gonna go ahead and awaken. I guess I'll put it on this podcast, which solidifies it out in the world. Is during COVID, I started to create this little animation graphic of COVID. But it's a game. It's a retro 8-bit game. And so It has like a side scroller where you could like see it. So I even had it where you choose the beginning. It's like Mortal Kombat where you're like choosing like, do you want to be Fauci? Whoa! Or Donald Trump? And and it was like all these kind of cool. So I really, I put a lot of a lot of effort into it, and then it paused. So I've thought about bringing that back and fun things like that, or at least sharing the 8-bit characters, right? Like here's 8-bit Donald Trump, here's 8-bit Kellyanne Conway, here's 8-bit Anthony Fauci.
I like that.
But yeah,
I think like I said, like if times like this happens, you gotta put the extra stretch on it, And there's like for me, for example, I want to make like for YouTube some reaction videos and do like it's just an experiment. Not that I feel like it should be like the new full-time thing where I put all my eggs in, but as an exercise, like there's people making reaction videos, they're highly edited in a weird way that I don't really like, but should I do it just to see if I could do it, as an exercise? What would do it, what would happen? Stuff like that, like.
Yeah, well, I especially say you should if it brings you joy. I mean, that's always my thing. I don't think I'll ever do anything just for the money because I don't think it's sustainable if I don't enjoy it. I won't do it in the long term. So if it brings you joy, if like you enjoy doing that, if you enjoy doing those types of videos, you enjoy reviewing things and stuff like that, then yeah, that's it. That's all you need, really, right?
Yeah.
Just like right now, I paint as well, right? And I'm not a successful artist, but I enjoy it. So keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's like you said, like it doesn't like so for people out there that they just like creating a little graphics and they don't really want to have a client dictating, what's the that's fine. Then that's where places like Redbubble and even Fiverr are, good places where you can just be like, this is what I want to make. And if they want it, cool. If they don't want it, cool. But I'm going to keep doing what I want to do. And I am a little jealous of that. I see a lot of creatives like that right now where they're just doing what they want to do and they're being very stubborn about it. And it's, for some of them, it's working amazingly because it reads it, right? You can read when people love what they do.
I mean, like, also yes and no, because like I said, I like pushing boundaries a little bit. If you get comfortable and you just draw your painting, like I feel like once in a while you have to experiment and push the envelope a little bit. Like you draw regularly, like publish it somewhere or do something creative or experimental with it to see where that leads. You don't have to like it, but you have to push yourself once in a while so that you don't become rigid. You know what I mean? But yeah.
No,
that's why I said Redbubble.
Well, and I think what's nice about places like Redbubble too is it's not necessarily a popularity game. Then you're on a platform where you can be found with other stuff. And I think one thing that I know discourages me, even at the beginning of this podcast, right? Like we don't have a huge fan club right out of the gate, right? We're building this bootstrap where these first few episodes we're happy if a few people ever watch them, but so even I've had some times where recently I've just been like, oh God, I don't feel the appreciation. I don't feel, but that's where loving what you do comes in handy, right? Like I think we both love these talks ourselves. I think these help us just
with our own
us.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for us it's like whatever, right? Like and I think that's the best thing out there. So I would
Yeah.
say that is yeah, do new things and get outside of your
Yeah.
bubble, but go towards love. Like don't go towards something that you don't really like. It just makes no sense. And I mean, and if it seems like something obvious, like why would I go to something I don't like? But I see it all the time with creatives where they just see a new technology or they see a new, like there's a new trend or a new thing that can make them some money and they go towards it, but it's one of those things of like, well, if you're in it for the creativity and if you're in it for the fun, then go for those things. Like truly
Yeah.
go for those things.
I feel like also like it's like sometimes you don't know if you will love it or hate it till you try it. You know, it's like
Yeah.
kind of like when your mom tells you gotta eat the vegetables. You know, and if you would not have done it, you would not know you don't like it. You like it. And I'm like with some like new trends, new things. I think like you have to experiment with it, just to experiment. Not even though you maybe think you don't like it because you do not know if it's just a pain that you feel about something because you never did it. You know, like this podcast, for example, in the beginning, like, oh, maybe Sean puts it off or I put it off, you know, and we all have those like little feelings and
Yeah.
drag and negative thoughts about should I go to this meetup? Oh, is that a good idea? You know, every time you feel pain, just do it and see what happens. And afterwards you can decide. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, almost thinking of it as a scientific process, right? You're just experimenting. You're just seeing
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't. And because, I'm lucky that I fell in love with design back as a kid in high school, and I'm still doing it. I mean, that's not very
It's
common.
impressive.
It's not very common. I don't run into a lot of people that knew they wanted to be a designer years and years ago. You know, I run into a lot of designers nowadays that they became an adult and then decided they want to be a designer. A lot of 30-year-olds that decide to be a designer, but yeah, but I think it's the reason that it's worked is because I do like the creativity. I do
Yeah.
have a big imagination, an overactive imagination. And so, yeah, so if I was to, in high school, if I would have at the same time been like, oh, well, lawyers make a ton of money, or maybe a neuroscientist makes a lot of money. I was too stupid to be a neuroscientist and probably too stupid to be a lawyer, but
Gotta know just stuff, learn things.
gotta know stuff to do those things. But so if I would have done that, I don't know if I'd be doing those things still because it's like they never brought me joy back then. So
Yeah.
why would that change now? I mean, maybe the money could change that. People could argue, but yet again, if I think that's where we get into the argument of are you in it for the creativity or the money? And you
Yeah.
don't have to choose, but be
I mean,
honest.
there's
with
no
yourself.
rules in life.
But which one's more important? Because there probably is one that's more important to you, right? And I do tell creatives all the time, like if you're in this to make money, you're in the wrong career. Like there's so much better careers to make money than the creative field. I hate to say it. Like I wish I could tell you like, oh, we're in the middle of a renaissance where we're all buying Mercedes Benzes and all have 3 houses, but we don't. I mean, I would say I'm a successful designer and I'm still just getting by. And
Yeah.
so, but I love what I do. And I think that's what's important. I think that's, and that's a lot of people, I think, when they get stuck in the comfort of a job, they lose that sense too. Do you like this because of the comfort or do you like what you do? And I think people are able to work in a place if they don't love what they do, if they're comfortable enough, but play that out 10 or 20 years and then you get to the end of that road, that's a scary place to be. You're 45 and you're 50 and you've literally spent half your life doing something that didn't bring you joy.
Yeah.
That's worse than any amount of money.
Yeah, that very true. Here's to that. Yeah, on that note, I think I finished all my topics that I had. And yeah, how about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, to just kind of wrap up this episode a little bit, I think it's, I guess the main point that we're kind of getting to in this is that we all have these humble beginnings, right? I had my little logo for a massage company that took me 50, 60 hours, and you had a video where you charged a decent amount and you're pretty proud of that. But other than that, is kind of a weird situation, but we all have those. And I think, so don't be discouraged if the first time you stick your foot out into the creative world, it's a little odd and a little weird and you spent too much time and you didn't get any money and things like that. that doesn't really matter. It's, did it bring you joy? Did making the thing that you make bring you joy? And I think when you made that video and when I made that logo, we felt that joy, and we're like, okay, well, let's make another. Let's keep it going. So
and let's see how far we go.
Exactly. And so, yeah, so what I would say is embrace the chaos. I mean, the world is so chaotic now. I think we all can recognize that any of us could get fired anytime. There could be emergencies at any time.
Yeah.
And so the best thing to do is embrace the chaos and then realign to what you love. Just realign towards the light. Go towards the light.
Yeah, and you don't have to fight everything. So on that note, please rate the podcast 5 stars if you watch the whole thing. Also check YouTube out. And also, where can they find you? SeanCraigCreative.com.
Well, there you go. So Sean Craig Creative on Instagram, SeanCraigCreative.com. You can always email me at hello@SeanCraigCreative. And then you also can email the Infinite Creative Podcast at gmail.com if you have any ideas for topics or anything. But yeah, check us out on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube under Infinite Creative Podcast. And we'll be doing episodes every week. So please join the conversation. Please send us comments. Please send us messages. Even hate mail. It's totally fine. Just send us whatever.
I don't want them. But yeah, engagement is nice. But yeah, have a good one.